In Russia, they said they want to carry out genocide against the Ukrainian people. They also suggested helping Trump occupy Greenland. Here are the details of today's massive Russian attack on Ukraine. My name is Albina Pidhirnyak. More details coming up. In the Kharkiv region, Russian forces struck a postal terminal. As a result, 4 people were killed and 6 people were injured.
Now. Sergey, wait, don't, roof. So, look, we have it, so that. He pulled it out. Carefully pull on Sergey, and now carefully climb out on us. The leg is intact, the arms. Lie here, turn over carefully. Legs are fine, everything is slow. Slowly, the head is neater. To the left, with his left hand.
The threat of ballistics. Be careful, pieces of iron. Separation, ballistics threat, cover.
Come on.
In Odessa, according to preliminary information, 5 people were injured as a result of the shelling. Emergency psychologists provided assistance to 14 people, including 1 child. Russian forces also struck the Kiev and Dnipropetrovsk regions. Here is how Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy commented on today's massive attack.
Almost 300 attack drones, most of them Shahed drones, as well as 18 ballistic missiles and 7 cruise missiles, were launched by Russia at Ukraine overnight. Once again, the main target was our energy sector, power generation and substations. Sadly, there was also heavy damage to residential and civilian infrastructure. The regions hit included Dnipro, Zhytomyr, Zaporizhzhia, Kiev, Odessa, Sumy, Kharkiv, Donetsk regions, and Zaporizhzhia city. With no military purpose at all, Russia struck a postal terminal in Korotych, Kharkiv region, killing 4 people. My condolences to their families and loved ones. The situation in the Kiev region is difficult. Several 100,000 families are currently without electricity. All emergency services are working on the ground, and resilience centers have been opened. As always, where Russia tries to destroy, Ukrainians support one another. Internal resilience is what we need most right now. Every such attack on civilian life is a reminder that support for Ukraine must not stop. Missiles for air defense systems are needed every day, especially in winter. The world can respond to Russia's terror with new aid packages for Ukraine. We expect faster delivery of what has already been agreed with the United States and Europe. Russia must understand that cold will not help it win this war. Thank you to everyone who is helping.
The Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine said on Telegram that he held another phone call with the Commander of the US Army in Europe and Africa and the Commander of NATO Allied Land Command, General Christopher Donahue. Here are the details of the conversation.
I informed my American counterpart about the situation on the front line, which remains difficult. Despite heavy losses in personnel, weapons, and military equipment, the Russian aggressor continues its offensive actions. At the same time, the enemy is carrying out massive missile and airstrikes on our rear areas, deliberately targeting energy facilities and using freezing temperatures as an additional tool of pressure and terror against Ukraine's civilian population. In December 2025 and early January 2026, the enemy carried out 6 large-scale missile and drone attacks on Ukraine. On the night of January 13th, Russia attacked Ukraine's energy facilities, as well as other infrastructure and civilian targets, using 25 missiles and 293 attack drones. Since February 24, 2022, Russia has used more than 13,300 missiles and over 142,300 attack drones against Ukraine. In this context, our top priority is strengthening air defense, receiving air defense systems and ammunition, including those that can be provided by the United States. I also briefed the commander of U.S. Army Europe on other critical needs of our Army that can be met under the PURL initiative. I stressed that under current conditions, achieving a sustainable ceasefire in Ukraine is possible only if Western partners increase coordinated pressure on the aggressor. I also thanked General Christopher Donahue personally, as well as the President and the people of the United States, for their support of Ukraine and for their efforts to achieve a just and lasting peace in Ukraine.
The unmanned systems forces destroyed an enemy missile and artillery weapons depot and struck electrical substations in the temporarily occupied territories of the Donetsk region and Crimea. There is video footage of the strikes. The armed forces of Ukraine continue to destroy military production facilities in Russia. Overnight in Taganrog, workshops at the Atlanta Aero plant were burned. On Russian TV, they openly say that their strikes are meant to cause a humanitarian catastrophe in Ukraine. Propagandist Kashin said that Russia's goal is to freeze the Ukrainian population.
Well, Russia still has a specific goal now. And, apparently, it is associated with the achievement of a blackout during the winter, which can lead to freezing, unfreezing of utility networks and their irreversible destruction. This This will have consequences for many years to come. As a matter of fact, well, as such a very mitigated example, we can recall Georgia, where the collapse of the communal infrastructure occurred during the internal conflict in the early 90s. Yes, there, when the city froze, and people in their apartments were heated, with potbelly stoves, yes, there, in multi-story buildings, and their utility networks died. As far as I understand, there is still no hot water supply and central heating in these quarters. It was never restored. That is, yes, but this is much more. This is a much milder climate.
This is a terrible picture.
In Georgia, you can live like this. That is, there are as if people heat their homes, with electricity and have boilers there, yes, there to wash. As for hot water supply, that's how it was. Even these pipes have already been torn out and scrapped. Yes, this is not enough strength, this is all, because it needs to be all over again, in fact, restored and checked. This is a huge amount of work. Yes, if this happens, it will be such a disaster. This, to the question, in fact, about the future price of owning Ukraine, it will be colossal.
Russian propagandists say on their TV show that the United States and Europeans are supposedly not allies. They are again threatening Europe with occupation.
Trump is preparing for a big war, an increase in the budget by 1.5 times? 1.5 trillion is America's military budget, and it is very beneficial for us if it is a war with Europe. And we will be ready to help Trump free Greenland from this alien influence. Why not? By the way, I like European. It suddenly decided that America was an ally. America is not an ally at all. America has been keeping its occupation troops in Europe since 1945. She is not your ally, European brutes. She is your master. And the owner will tell you now. Look and think like Stamer, who can't tell what it was in Venezuela. And you will not be able to say anything about Greenland, and you will not be able to bring your troops to Greenland. A. You have no troops. B. You have nothing to deliver them with. The Americans will sink you on the way, if they want, and we will help. Well, just for the love of art, in my opinion.
One of the leaders of Russia's so-called political forces, Zyuganov, said from the State Duma podium that Americans are drug addicts and that this should be said openly.
The main drug addicts on the planet are Americans. And we must say it clearly and honestly. I suggest that our talented guys, 60 Minutes, conduct a whole program on this topic. I want to remind you that in the 60s and 70s, when we fought together with the Vietnamese and cleaned the arse of the Americans there, they grew the main drugs in the Golden Triangle at the junction of 3 states. It was the main hotbed of opium.
This is what Russian television looks like. Protect yourselves from Russian propaganda right where you're watching us from. See you again. Glory to Ukraine.